Hey guys, and welcome to Phlearn. My name is Aaron Nace, and you can find me on the all-new Phlearn.com, where we make learning Photoshop and photography fun. And welcome to a special Halloween episode. I love Halloween. It's my favorite time to be extremely weird and get away with it. In celebration of our Halloween episodes, we're going to be creating a scar, or rather like a big wound in someone's face today. And I wouldn't suggest doing this just to every image that you have, but during Halloween, it's a great time. So if you guys are doing like zombie images or trying to create something scary, this is going to be a perfect episode for you. So here's our image for today. It's nice and scary. We've already got some blood going on, and it looks like a scar would be appropriate in this image. And that's a really big part of it, is choosing an image that would actually be appropriate to have a scar. So let's go ahead and create this scar. I'm going to create a new layer. We're going to group this with itself. I'm just going to double click on this group, and we're going to call this scar. So everything that's going to be in the scar is going to be with this group. Now this is going to be a lot easier than you might think it would be, especially it's going to look real by the time we're done. First thing we need to do is basically define the outline or the shape of our scar. And I'm going to do that with our lasso tool. So we can hit L for the lasso tool. And basically now it's time for me to just kind of draw a shape of a scar. And we can, kind of bring it down there. And I suggest using the lasso tool because it's basically the variation with your hand or your mouse or your cursor, whatever. It's going to give little variations in the side of the actual scar. So I would really recommend just using a lasso tool. You don't need to go fancy with this. Just make a shape that looks a little bit like a scar. Okay, so there we go. We've already made our scar. I'm on my new layer. I'm going to hit Shift to delete, and we're going to fill that with black. So we've got our black scar. Let's deselect, and that's all there is to step one. So after we created the shape of the scar, it's time to actually add some depth and make it look like it's in the skin. So we're going to create a new layer, and I'm just going to grab my clone stamp tool. So S for the clone stamp tool, and we're going to hold Alt or Option, and I'm going to sample a point right here, and we're going to start painting in from the left to the right. And my goal here is to pretty much cover up that harsh line that we had originally. All right, and I don't want to go all the way to the center because this is going to look like skin that's inside of the scar. So basically, we're going to just go from the right side and the left side, and anywhere the scar opens up a little bit larger, I'm okay with it going to black. Basically, that's where it would just, the light's not going to hit inside of the scar right there. Okay, that looks great. Now, the next thing we need to do is actually clip this layer to the black. If you guys are not familiar with clipping masks, here's basically how they work. If I were to create a new layer and I were to create, I'm going to paint with green here, and I'm going to paint green on this layer just like this. Now let's say I want this to only be visible where my scar is. All I have to do is right click here and go to create clipping mask. And now that green is only visible inside of my scar. You can see there's a little arrow here, and that's how clipping masks work. They use one layer visibility to define another layer's visibility. So let's just delete that, and now we're going to do the same thing. We've got this clone stamp. I'm just going to hit Option Command G, because that's actually the keyboard shortcut for create clipping mask. Or you can always right click and go to create clipping mask. So now we've got some flesh inside of the scar. We need to go ahead and darken it down a little bit. So on the same layer, I'm going to hit Ctrl or Command M, which is going to bring up our curves. Let's just make it so we can see everything. Now we're just going to click here because this is supposed to be the skin that's inside of the body, right? So it's going to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to click right here, and we're going to just drag this down a little bit. There we go. That looks pretty good. And that's basically the scar that's like inside. That's the flesh that's going to be inside of the scar. All right, so that looks pretty good so far. You know what? We can give this a little bit of color too. If I want to hit Control or Command U, there we go. I'm going to bring up my saturation with this, and then we can kind of just give it a little bit of color to make it look a little bit more like skin. Or bloody skin, whatever you have it. All right, that looks great. So our next step is to dodge and burn around the scar to actually make it look like it's got some depth, because right now it still looks a little bit flat. So we're going to create a new layer right above there, and I'm going to hit B for the brush tool, and we're going to paint with black and white, and I'm going to turn this layer from normal down to a soft light layer. All right, and basically my goal here is to paint, I'm going to paint some white right here on the edge of my scar. And this is going to make it look like it's kind of raised, like the tissue is raised up a little bit right around the scar. There we go. That looks good. And now we're going to paint some dark, making it look like there's a little bit of like a fold of skin right here. So dark right, there we go, close to the actual hole. in the person's face, which I know is kind of disgusting, but hey, it's Halloween and we're supposed to be making disgusting episodes right now. All right, so we're painting dark right around here, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to paint a little bit of light. So this is your time to really get in there and play, because using the dodging and burning here, that's what's really going to help these actually look like, you know, they're real. It's going to help complete this effect. Without the dodging and burning, it's always going to look a little bit fake. It's going to look flat. So just be sure you spend some time here actually dodging and burning. And there we go. You can see already how much depth it's adding. And it'll also make it look a lot more like variable. So some of this you can see is going to look a little bit darker. Some of it's going to look a little bit lighter. And that really helps sell the effect. It makes it look less like it was done in Photoshop and more like it was actually, you know, a scar that actually did affect the skin. All right, there we go. That looks pretty good. Let's just go ahead and clean this up just a little bit. All right, there we go. Almost there. And again, I'm just painting black and white on a new layer, and that layer is set to the blending mode of soft light. There we go. So we can see what a big difference some dodging and burning around the actual scar makes. So our next step is to add a little bit of color to the scar and really make it look like it's actually in the skin. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab a new layer. We're going to grab our brush tool, and you know what? I'm just going to sample this color that's in her lips. It's already a red color. It's already in the image. We can just use that color. And we're going to set our layer blend mode now from normal to either soft light or overlay. Let's start off with overlay. And now with this red color, we're just going to kind of paint right around here. You know what? I think soft light would work a little bit better. All right. And this color, you know what? As I'm painting around, let's change this back to overlay. I'm realizing it's a little bit too light. That's not really a problem. Let's just click here and make sure this is like a dark saturated color. There we go. Let's just clear all that. It's not a problem to just change your color at any point in time. All right. There we go. And this is just kind of adding some like dark red. It's making the skin around the scar look like it's a little bit wounded. You know, we don't want to have perfect skin right around a big scar, unless it's like a very fresh scar, but this has been there for at least 5 minutes. All right, there we go. So adding that little bit of color, you can see, really does help the effect out. So our next step is to add a little blood actually coming out of the scar, the wound. And in this image, we already have some blood. But if your image that you're using doesn't have any blood already, just do a Google image search or use a stock website like Fotolia.com and find an image with blood and then use that blood. Or photograph your own blood. I don't know, just, well, photograph your own fake blood. I don't want anyone cutting themselves for this episode. All right, what we're going to do is hit S for the clone stamp tool. And I'm going to hold Alt or Option. We're going to sample some of this blood here. And then I'm just going to paint it right over this area. And this is going to really help complete the effect. All right, there we go. Now we do want to do a couple of things here. I'm going to change this layer blend mode from normal. Let's try it down to darken. Well, you know what? Let's just change this back to normal because I did like all the little white highlights. But I do want to make sure that this doesn't, you know, actually like affect. I don't want it going into the black. So let's create a layer blend mask on this. And there we go. We're just going to go in here and I'm going to paint black on my blending, on my layer mask, just to make sure that it only affects the areas that we want. There we go. We don't want it going like into that, you know, the black hole of the scar. All right, let's create a hard edge brush, and then I'm just going to kind of create like a relatively believable end to the blood here. You don't want to end the blood, you know, like what I mean by end the blood is like where the blood stops and ends in the image. You don't want to do that with a soft edge brush because it's not going to look as realistic. You want to use a hard edge brush, and that's going to make it look like, you know, the actual blood is kind of like caked on the skin there, rather than just like, you know, if you use a soft edge brush and just kind of like did like that, it would look like it was just done in Photoshop. So you want to use a hard edge brush. There we can see that looks a lot better. The scar is looking great. I just need to do a little bit of work on both the top and the bottom to actually help it make it look like there's a little bit of shallow skin in there. So we're going to go again. Remember, this layer is where we painted some skin in with a clone stamp tool. I'm basically going to do the same thing. So let's create a new layer above that. Option Command G will clip it down to our original scar. And now we're going to hit S for the clone stamp tool. And I'm just going to clone stamp here right at the top a little bit. There we go. And we're going to do so at the bottom as well. All right, we can kind of like lower our opacity just a little bit. Let's make sure to erase this out from anywhere it's like, you know, actually hitting. There we go. All right, and that's helping it make it look a lot more realistic from what we had in the beginning. And the last thing we're going to do is help the scar actually blend into the image. Now, in this case, not our entire subject is completely in focus. There's a little bit of areas that are a little bit blurred. So I need to duplicate that blur with the scar. It's easier than you think. We're just going to create a new layer above everything else. And I'm going to go right over here, down beneath your eraser tool. You can click there. You can see you've got a blur tool, a sharpen tool, and a smudge tool. We're just going to go to our blur tool. I'm going to choose my strength to be at about, well, let's go to 100%. And I'm going to click on Sample All Layers. And now here on the bottom area, where it's a little bit out of focus, I'm just going to paint right over top of there. And it's just going to allow this scar to kind of blend in to the skin. So I'm using the same blur, and the blur is, you know, getting more and more, getting more of an effect down here where the image is actually less and less in focus. So you can see what a huge difference that makes. Let's just zoom in so we can really see that, making the scar actually look like it's part of the skin. And that's all there is to it, guys. Let's take a look at our before and our after. So here's our before and our after. That looks awesome. Thanks so much for watching this episode, guys. I hope it helped out learning how to create some scars in Photoshop so you don't have to do them in real life. Have a happy Halloween, and if you like what we're doing here at Phlearn, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can receive free Photoshop and photography tutorials every single week, just like this one. And if you have an idea for an episode or a question about today's episode, leave it in a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, guys. I'll Phlearn you later. Bye, everyone. Right now, you receive free Photoshop and photography updates and... All right, I'll do that better. Whew. That looks awesome. So scary. So scary, Scar.